Hey, what's going on everybody? This is Peter coming at you through the tubes of the internet. Today, taking a look at the latest release from mewithoutYou, their Untitled album. I'm excited to discuss and glad you could join.
Fast Facts.
Capital U Untitled, released October 5th, 2018 via Run for Cover Records, is the 7th studio LP from Philly-based post-hardcore act mewithoutYou. The band currently consists of 5 members: frontman Aaron Weiss, his brother guitarist Mike Weiss, drummer Rick Mazzata, bassist Greg Jahanian, and guitarist Brandon Beaver.
Backstory.
mewithoutYou have been in the game over 15 years and have a ton of variety in their back catalog to show for it. Starting with chaotic experimental hardcore, and it turns delving into prog rock, acoustic instrumentation, and heady concept albums, their consistently high quality outputs taken many forms over the years. Brothers Aaron and Mike Weiss's unique religious upbringing in a household with parents who practice Islam, Judaism, and Christianity at various points has proven to be an unending well of inspiration for the band's lyrical themes. Drawing on those theological myths as well as secular fables and even pop culture happenings has led to Aaron becoming one of the most diverse and creative lyricists making music today. And the band's ambitious and experimental tendencies are on full display with this new album, which somehow manages to be even more enigmatic than their previous material. LP number 7 has no title and features only abstract artwork on the cover. It gives the listener almost nothing to go on in terms of context for the record. And the music matches the visual. These are songs that almost defy you to follow a through line, often featuring multiple narrators with different perspectives in the same song, and leading the listener down a wide range of sonic and lyrical rabbit holes as the tunes progress. And though the themes here are complex and esoteric, I have no problem engaging with them. I don't feel like I understand these songs perfectly, but there's either a visceral energy that draws me in, or poetically expressed ideas that beg to be unpacked. So just a quick disclaimer if I'm off base with some of my interpretations here. By no means do I think I had this release completely figured out, but I'm feeling compelled to take a stab at it anyway, because I really dig this album.
Track by track analysis.
This release has 12 tracks and clocks in at 46 minutes. There's a ton of creativity on display here and thus plenty of content to fill out the album's long run time. A couple tunes at the very tail end of the release start to drag a bit, but overall, this album's plenty interesting throughout.
Track 1, 9:27 a.m., 7:29.
A short but intense opener. mewithoutYou begin the record with an ominous instrumental that leads straight into a scorching vocal. The delivery alternates back and forth between throat-shredding screams and urgently spoken lines, which comes across really bipolar and manic. Maybe even more intense than if it was just screaming the whole time. The lyrics seem to find Aaron waiting on a savior who doesn't show up, or at least doesn't deliver on the salvation he was hoping for. Rituals like burying a cow's horn and worshipping at the altar of the May Queen only manifest a neon sign saying "better luck next time" as a result. Though the lyrics are cryptic, a strong sense of hopelessness makes it through. The frantic instrumental combined with the fox in the henhouse theme creates an off mood, and it's a fitting start for the tone of the record.
Track 2, Julia, or Holy to the Lord on the Bells of Horses.
Here, both the music and lyrics have a cyclical quality. Lines refer to summer plant growth transitioning into fall harvest, and the instrumentals follow a similar build and bust pattern. The theme for this track seems to be hinged on the lines, exploring the idea that for one religion to be correct, others then necessarily have to be incorrect. Weiss keeps asking, "Will I meet you there?" maybe as a way of pondering whether or not everyone makes it to the same afterlife, and the track highlights several reasons that likely won't be the case. I love the contradictory tone of being safely on shore but still sinking like a stone, and this song does a great job of examining the damned if you do, damned if you don't nature of conflicting religious rulebooks. Pulling in the Julia character from Orwell's 1984 is a great analog for this too. She gives the okay for her lover to be tortured in a horrifying way, but in the lines from this tune he seems to say, "I'd have done the same." An excellent and haunting cut, and an awesome lead single for the album.
Track 3, another hit for Hydra.
This track's chorus is seen to portray God as a petulant authoritarian, holding a horrendously evil punishment over his subjects' heads and taunting them with it. It's twisted and intense, and the building instrumentation behind these vocals pushes the drama to the max. I love the pressing questions Aaron poses to the album's producer Will Yip regarding his Grammy nomination on the bridge here. He's basically asking, have you kissed enough industry ass to win some meaningless trinket? And by doing so, do you realize you're only further legitimizing this institution's clout? The track concludes by describing ominous shapes taking form on the desert skyline, and Aaron asking, who's the devil this time? He draws inspiration from children's board books as he maybe examines the futility of trying to teach a child right from wrong in a country that's constantly engaging in empire building and imperialism. The tune's goal seems to be skewering entrenched power structures, and I think it's extremely effective.
Track 4, Dormouse Sighs.
Outside door, mating right, secured lambs with best attempts to keep themselves warm.
This track finally shows a break in the intensity, but even though the vocal delivery isn't as fiery, the lines are still presented with an urgency. Sentences seem to run right into each other without much pause, like a stream of consciousness rambling. The chorus here is simplistic but seems kind of unhinged. Normally the idea of waiting on a prince to come save the day is a metaphor for a far-fetched pipe dream, but here it's portrayed as a certainty, though the gloomy instrumentals and brooding tones underneath make it seem like that optimism is unwarranted. The last minute breaks into a weird, rhythmic sort of cultist chant over the chugging guitars, and the wording here just seems a bit generic. With all the incredibly witty lyricism elsewhere in the release, it's kind of disappointing that they chose this phrase to repeat ad nauseum to close the track. I love this tune up to that point, but the home stretch here doesn't really do it for me.
Track 5, Winter Solstice.
Winter solstice, the unopened one.
One of the poppiest moments on this release is the only cut that makes the jump from the band's Untitled EP released earlier this year to this Untitled LP, albeit with a fuller band instrumental and some reworked lines late in the tune. This track seems to find Wiest reflecting on past regrets and trying to figure out how religion fits into his current life. The ongoing motif of the biblical Noah's Ark story is employed here, as Aaron's watching drowned animals float by and wondering if they could have been saved by being more pious. The song builds to the question of where God fits into Aaron's life, maybe him wondering whether he should move his wife to the second fiddle position and put God first, and this hierarchy of priorities goes along great with the running theme of the album.
As your face changes.
Track 6, Flee Thou Matadors.
You that cover clouds in a midnight sky, I a little snowflake wax wing high.
One of my favorite cuts from this release has a really stark contrast between the verse and refrain. The chorus is simplistically worded, but the way it strips out all the bass and low register, leaving only high swirling instrumentation, is a cool musical representation of the subject matter. Several times the lyrics mention David using his harp to play the blues away for King Saul, and this pretty chorus, musically taking the place of the harsh tones of the verse, communicates that well. Elsewhere, the track conveys a strong sense of torment and worry. I love the line about,
Clockwork drama in a Justin's ring.
to convey this constant state of crisis, but also hint at this being a superficial high school type of drama. And the paranoia about chemtrails from the Air Force planes works great too. The last couple minutes feature a really rippin' prog rock solo, and the way the bass elements build out beneath it and eventually take over is executed perfectly. This is one of the best instrumental breaks on the album and shows the strength of each band member's contributions.
Track 7, Tortoises All the Way Down.
Everybody knows some. Everybody knows just what you've done.
A really ominous song here. The verses have a slow-paced and menacing delivery that keeps resolving to the lines, "Everybody knows what you've done," suggesting this looming atrocity in the past the character can't escape from. The titular line reiterates this in a cool way, using the turtles all the way down idiom to maybe indicate a lie stacked on a lie, stacked on a lie, and again later this idea takes the form of a painting of a house inside of a house, and so on. It's a creepy way of showing how this attempt to bury a past regret deep has been ineffective. Overall, this tune's just a bit too modern rocky for my taste. There's a couple different musical approaches, but everything's just mid-tempo and never really lands for me. Not bad, just a little unexciting considering how captivating the other material here is.
Surely as the sun, early on the east side comes.
Track 8, 2,459 miles.
Living 2,459 miles from home.
This song's about vocalist Aaron Weiss's move from Pennsylvania to Idaho, and its melancholy mood creates a strong sense of isolation. Weiss's self-doubts feature often in the lyrics of this album, but this tune's just so stripped down and raw they're extra apparent here. His own isolation's compounded by the fact that he's dragged his wife and kid along to this remote locale, and he's replaying the idea that they could leave over and over in his head. Or of course there's always the possibility that these characters are a stand-in for God and that's who could leave him whenever. Either way, the forlorn gloom makes it through on this cut, and it's a good communication of that mood.
Track 9, Wendy and Betsy.
The previous chill tune fades directly into this song, which is a polar opposite in terms of energy. This is the most intense song on the album, and by the end of the track, one of the most intense songs I've ever heard on any album. The cut has no refrain and just progressively builds over the course of its runtime. The lead guitar rings out with high and harsh tones, and the percussion is explosive and driving. And the lyrics are too. Weiss whips the vocal delivery into an absolute frenzy when discussing religious conflict late in the cut. He mentions weaponizing God and starting the Third World War before the track culminates in a tense scene at the Israeli West Bank apartheid wall. Weiss mentions leaving his dignity behind as he's forced to suppress his multi-religious heritage to cross this boundary, and this seems to dovetail with religious tensions Aaron has faced with his in-laws. The record's themes of conflicting ideologies come to a head on this cut, and it's an incredibly volatile moment. The record's best song in my opinion.
Track 10, New Wine, New Skins.
Or is this truly how you choose to live?
This tune's first half is mellow and offers a nice respite from the ferocity of the previous track, but the second half picks up steam and introduces a call and response between two guitars that picks the energy right back up. These sounds clash with each other in a distinct way, and it's one of my favorite instrumental elements on this release. The new skin aspect of the title is taken literally in the lyrics, as Weiss describes a high-tech new vessel with android limbs and carbon fiber lips. Maybe another way of addressing living on past death like the album has pondered previously. This tune also seems to get at the question of how much agency people should take in their lives by asking whether or not one should accept their fated fortune. It's really interesting subject matter and another late album highlight.
Track 11, Michael Row Your Boat Ashore.
The only song I really dislike on this release distills all my complaints from the other tunes into one convenient package. My main hangups are the mixed too low vocals and the meandering instrumentals. I realize these were conscious decisions, but it still doesn't make for a very interesting listen in my opinion. I can somewhat appreciate how the whispers gel with the guitars and synth as they occupy the same space, but they never really get a spot of their own, even during the shouted parts later in the tune. The track just seems like a puree of sounds with everything mushed together, like an instrumental track that just happens to also have vocals. The problem is, the instrumental portion isn't that compelling and goes on too long. These last 3 tunes are all fairly slow burns, and this one just seems tedious at 5 minutes. Thumbs down here, I could definitely do without this track, and I think it's the album's only real misstep.
Track 12, Break On Through to the Other Side, Part 2.
This album's shortest and possibly most straightforward song concludes the release. A refrain of "Someday I'll Find Me" is repeated throughout the track, and it's a hopeful note to leave off on. Even though Aaron's clearly dealing with some mental demons at the moment, he's confident that this too shall pass and he'll end up in a better place as a result. The album's been winding down for the last few tracks, and this is a fitting end to that trajectory. It's a good, if slightly anticlimactic closer, and I think this album overall handles the heavy tunes a little better than the chill ones.
Verdict.
Overall, I love this album. It's an overwhelming barrage of sounds and ideas, but I enjoyed being overwhelmed by it. It's an album you can just get lost in. The creativity employed in discussing this record's heavy themes towers over most albums. The tightly intricate rhymes and vocal melodies form perfectly with a diverse and captivating instrumentation throughout the release, and it makes for one of the most satisfying listening experiences of 2018. For those reasons, I'm going to give this release a score of 9 out of 10, and I think it has so much to offer that it'll stand up to re-listens and revisits for a long time to come. So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the record. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the release, my critique, or the review format in general. Making this is a lot of work, but also fun, and definitely worth it if it helps some people wrap their head around the record. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Streaming stuff going on the internet.